Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. We have spoken of this many times and in many ways. Are you or are you not a divine creature of God? If you don't want to say the word God, say of the creative source. Are you or are you not related to the divinity of the universe? And most of you will say, well, I have a soul. That means that I probably am. And you're right. We've said it before. Most of the planet believes in the afterlife. Now, this means there is a strong belief that comes from innate, that says that after you die and perish in a biological form, there's something that remains. And that something you can call whatever, a soul, and that something is still you in some way, a consciousness something that is not in the body. This is the clear and constant, unanimous thinking of most of the planet. Over 80% of you believe in the afterlife. This 80% means that most of Earth understands you have a soul. Now, what does that mean to you, really? Honestly. If you want to go back to the ancients and the teaching and the training thereof, the soul also resides loosely in a vehicle called the Merkaba. Now, that is a Hebrew word that loosely means to ride. The human soul rides in this Merkaba, which has been described as a field energy, a bubble, approximately 8 meters wide. This is ancient information, known for a very, very long time. And it's something that describes this field that you sit in. Indeed, is that field three-dimensional? Is your soul three-dimensional? And you would say, oh no, the soul must be multidimensional, and it is. Some even say quantum. Your body sits in a field of unity. And that means that one thing affects another, affects another, affects another. Is it possible that even the chemistry, number one, of your body has multidimensional attributes? This was actually shown and proven many times over by those who asked that question and dared to test it. One of the first, almost 2 decades ago, was Vladimir Poponin, a Russian scientist who decided to use photons of light in an experiment with DNA. And in the DNA's field, he watched those photons of light do things that they were never supposed to do. He realized that what he was seeing is light, which is multidimensional. It can be in 2 places at the same time, interacts with human biology as though biology was interdimensional as well. He saw it. Others have seen it. We teach it. So the first premise of everything is that your biology, your simple chemistry, your DNA itself, has multidimensional aspects and attributes. So if this is so, it means that even the chemistry layer, even the 3D layer number 1, that the doctors will push and pull on with the chemistry of the day, of the drugs of the day, even that is multidimensional. Let me ask you, are you using any multidimensional tools to react with that chemistry layer? Your medicine isn't. It's using 3D to push on a multidimensional source. There are side effects for every single push. No matter what you give this body, there are side effects. except for one thing. Something else you've discovered. You discovered it hundreds of years ago, and yet you've never developed it into a common truth. And here it is. You've discovered that you could give tinctures of instruction sets to the number one layer of chemistry without side effects. Instruction sets that were so tiny in their chemistry that even though you have chemistry pushing on chemistry, the body saw it, recognized it, and obeyed it. Obeyed it, meaning this: you give it an instruction and it obeys. You have a headache, you give it a tincture called homeopathy. The body cannot actually see that as chemistry, but it sees it instead as an instruction. Do you get that? It does not see it as chemistry. It sees it as an instruction. And the headache leaves. There's something in your chemical body called a smart body, innate. This is part of the chemistry, built in. It's the smart body because it is used many times by even the physicians who understand kinesiology to test what you don't know about yourself. The smart body will work with muscles, giving you information that never could be given any other way. Suddenly, you're opening a door, even to layer number one, that says, look, the basic 3D chemistry isn't 3D. It must be multidimensional because it's responding, seemingly, in a non-allopathic way to signal sets being given to it. What do you think of this whole idea of a smart body? That smart body, dear ones, has been given to you so you can ask it questions, so it will know more than you do. It's only touched the surface in what it knows. That number one set, called chemistry, is far grander and greater than anything you would imagine. It has to be. Number one layer, called chemistry, is the engine of the body. It is the engine. Everything starts and stops at the engine. The engine either propels you forward or doesn't. It either works or it doesn't. It doesn't partially work because that leads then to failure. This engine of yours is constantly rejuvenated over decades and decades and decades. It's a smart engine. It's even more smart than you know. But everything starts and stops at the engine. So the chemistry layer is critical. Now you start asking the questions. What is it that you could do to give instruction sets to the basic chemistry engine that would change it? Question. To those who work in homeopathy, when you give a tincture, a remedy, to a human being, and the human being then is cured. Question, can you see it in the chemistry? Does the microscope reveal the cure? The answer, yes it does. Indeed. Yes it does. Because the engine is the engine. The chemistry must change in order for the healing to have occurred. So if you give a tincture for an immune boost, for instance, something that is supposed to make you less susceptible to disease, if you tested the human being, would you see an increase in the white blood count? The answer is yes. You see, homeopathy works. It changes the chemistry. Against all things that you might expect, homeopathy is the key to the understanding of instruction sets that change the chemistry physically in the body. So everything I'm going to talk about in that which is the healing would change the chemistry. It has to. That's the engine. Do you know people who have had cure from disease? Do you know people who have had a remission to the extent that disease is gone? Do you have any friends who might have had a divine healing? And if they had a divine healing, quickly, if you look at their chemistry in a microscope, does it change? And the answer is yes. You see, the divine healing changed the engine. So the chemistry, layer one, the engine of the body will always react, will always change with the instruction sets that follow. Up to now, your instruction sets, dear ones, have been pills. And those pills aren't really instruction sets. They're reactionary. A chemical pushes against a chemical to cause another chemical to change, and in the process, many change. Because you see, there is a unity of field. When you change one thing, other things move and other things change. Now, in the allopathic number one layer of chemistry, that isn't so good. But let me tell you something. If you give the right instruction set that doesn't push against chemistry but changes the reaction, there is no side effect. It's a cascading healing. Remember that word. A cascading healing, where you give an instruction set for the body to strengthen itself in one way, and it strengthens itself in all ways, because that is the way the engine works. When you give the engine a certain kind of chemistry, if it's your car, you give it certain kind of oil or gasoline or whatever it is, that's not all that gets improved. It runs better, it acts better, it lasts longer. There's no side effect. So what I'm telling you is this. You're going to develop instruction sets that create cascading healing, not chemistry that pushes against each other and has side effects, but chemistry that changes its reaction to itself. Chemistry that changes reactions to itself. Kryon, what are you talking about? Ask the person who had the healing from cancer. What did the microscope show? And they'll say, doctor said I'm free of cancer. So you mean it's not still there and some divine angel is sitting on it? You say, well, how silly of you to say that. Well, what else would have happened? Of course it changed the chemistry. You wouldn't be alive if it didn't. I want you to get the point. Everything we're going to talk about changes the chemistry, but it changes how the chemistry looks at itself. Enter layer two. Layer two, your inheritance. If you're a three-dimensional thinker and you don't want anything to do with this message, you're going to say, genes are genes are genes. You can't change them. They will always be there. And if you have a propensity for disease that your sister had, your mother had, your father had, it remains. It's there. It changes your cellular structure. It pushes upon it. Propensities are that way. Propensity meaning you're going to get it. Chances are it's going to push the chemistry into disease like it did your relatives. So the inheritance, very three-dimensional, is looked at with all of the chemistry by all doctors to see what are your propensities to catch these certain things or to develop these certain things. What did I tell you when we started? You sit in a field where everything reacts with everything. You've already discovered that homeopathy is a signal set which is not really linear, is it? Because you're not giving chemistry other chemistry, you're giving it a tincture. So many parts per million that are so minuscule, it couldn't possibly have a chemical reaction. And that is proven. So why does it change? It changes because it saw the instructions somehow from a source that yet you have yet to understand or discover or really recognize its importance. What if I told you this? There are signal sets that can talk to the inheritance part of your body. And it doesn't take away the gene, dear ones, because those who can count the genes, those who can recognize them, the science that could say you have the gene for this or that, that does not change. The chemistry didn't change in that point. But what did was the body's reaction to the gene. You just rewrote the program. Is it possible that you can rewrite a program in your body that is a program that gives you a predisposition for disease? Well, if you knew how this amazing body of yours works, it's programmed. All of it. It works a certain way because it's programmed to work that way. It's programmed as part of the genome. And what you're doing is coming in and rewriting that program. It's not spectacularly odd, dear ones. It's not woo-woo, dear ones. You're simply changing that template of the programming that's already there. Kryon, I don't understand what you're saying. Are you saying that if I have the gene for a certain disease, that I can rewrite that whole thing and it won't give me that disease? Welcome to understanding. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. So even within the first two layers, there's miracles. I haven't even touched on the woo-woo yet. Yes, you can rewrite. How do I reprogram? Kryon, tell me, what is the process? What do I go through? For 31 years, I gave you the answers. Book after book, channel after channel. It's all there. It starts with your belief. What you cognize in your brain becomes your reality. Adironda, who was channeling before me, they said the same thing. What you imagine, you can create. What you think changes outcomes. We have said this so many times, and now that is even becoming the reality. Some of science is even starting to see that those who would imagine they're always sick become sick. And those who imagine that they are always well never become sick. And they say consciousnness must therefore play some kind of part of health. If I tell you that gravity is going to take over when you jump off a bank of a river and to go into the water, do you say, really? Really? I think I'll try it. You don't try it, you go into the water, you see? You have to cognize it, understand it's got to be yours. You have to work on yourself to the point where you say, I am a creature who is quantum. I have the ability in this soul of mine to sit in the field and work with my own chemistry. Affirmations come into play, dear ones. Affirmations where you are telling yourself over and over a truth that then becomes the truth. I am strong. I am healthy. I am free of disease. Do you know the power of that? The engine of your body, the physical chemistry of your body will change, and they will be able to test it in laboratories. Why is it, Mr., Miss, whatever, that we're seeing your system so much stronger than it was the last time you were here? What are you doing? What pills are you taking today? We want to know. And if you say it's the pill of belief, it's the pill I'm taking now of taking charge of my own body. That's 1 and 2. That's just basic 3-dimension thinking around a quantum energy that is there, that you don't fully understand. Healing is far easier than you think. It is not a mystery. But if you believe everything you were told about what you can and cannot do, nothing's going to happen. Your inheritance, it's like a program that will carry out its destiny. Unless you change it. Unless you change it. You sit in a field of opportunity, of abilities, that no one really has told you about, that will be able to create healings in your body with and without help, but especially if you get a healer who will lead you through some of these difficulties. And they're watching now. They're watching now. And they're going, yes, continue, Kryon. Give it to them. Those healers are the ones who will take you by the hand and say, here is how it's done. And that's why they are watching this program. That's why they exist as old souls on this planet, because there are so many who don't truly understand how to believe. What do you do, human being, when all your life you're told something is a certain way and suddenly you learn that's not true, or that may not be true, or there could be another way? What's your first impression? It's walk the other way, isn't it? Well, maybe that will change as well. There's new energies on this planet, dear ones. I am Kryon, in love with humanity for good reason, being able to give you information because of that love. Because of that love. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. It is a sweet place here with human beings who have a glint of what they can do. Just a tiny glint of the light that they can create within. You might say it's a glimpse of their power. And some of you feel it and you know it. And almost exclusively you don't know what to do next. And if that's you, that's normal. For when you work in a asking you to do, you don't see a timeline. The masters had a phrase, "It is well with me. It is well with my soul." And they said it even in times before death. They said it in times that were frustrating. They said it in times of difficulty. Because they were focused on one thing, one reality. That the love of God inside them creates love of self. We have said this before. We have channeled it many times. We've even told you it's the secret to mastery. Get to the place where you are content with that which is in you, which is God. All of the other things around you be developed as you learn what to do with your life. Do not decide in advance where you're going to go or what you're going to do. I want to give you today the profundity of the system and humanity. There's been a lot of teaching today. And this then complements it. For what I want to do is explain your relationship to the system that's seemingly complex and esoteric, but that which literally defines you. There's nothing in the channel that you can prove. It's not science. It's about you. truly it's all about you?
Is it possible that the whole purpose of Gaia is to support humanity? Is it possible simply another mammal on a planet revolving around the sun? Is it possible that the energy delivered from the vibratory rate of this planet based upon what humanity does will actually affect the universe? And the answer is yes. And if that is the case, what kind of a system is in place that would allow such a thing to be? And how big is it? And that's what we will discuss now in this short amount of time. Let us define Akash. You have heard this before, that Gaia is an energy on the place of the planet Earth. And that Gaia is sentient. Gaia is an intelligence. Gaia has that which you would call intelligent consciousness. Able to converse, able to speak, much like Kryon does. And you'd be right. Gaia speaks in so many ways. And if you ask what the Akash of Gaia was, it would be the life force of the planet. I wish to speak of the Akash of the human being in relationship to Gaia. Gaia's cooperation around the human, even the planet, especially the planet. And if we had to start at the beginning, we'll say this: there is a system to keep track of who is here. Now, you may not think God would need a system, and you'd be right, but Gaia does. And there is a reason. For every single human soul that comes to this place called Earth makes a difference, has a unique energy, creates a record, and more, you'll see. And here it goes. Deep within the Earth, there is an interdimensional cavern that will never be found, but has three-dimensional properties. Difficult to explain, it is the only kind of hybrid in its existence that has three-dimensional properties which absolutely you would see and understand if it were visible, and it is not. For it is what you would call hidden. Never be found, it cannot be found, cannot be detected. It won't be. And in it is who you are. It's called the Cave of Creation. When you come to the planet, it's the first place you visit even before the birth canal. When you leave the planet, it's the last place you visit before you come home. Known by all of you when you are not human. It is the depository of the record of humanity, all of the lives that humanity have lived, and the very core soul essence of who you are. And here's how it works. Each soul in the cave of creation is unique. Let us take yours, for instance. What is your name? That name that you have, when you go to the other side of the veil, is recorded in the cave of creation as you leave, metaphorically as a stripe on a crystalline structure. The crystalline structure you might say, is that which remembers the vibration of who you were. Now let us say you come back, and you're going to be another name, an unknown at that moment. Before you hit the birth canal, another stripe is tentatively added to the crystalline. Same soul, stripe number 2. As it develops on the planet, it expects you to return and activate or solidify the stripe. And you do when you pass over again. So therefore, you have a crystalline structure for every soul, not every lifetime. Some of the souls there have 1,000 stripes. Now I want to tell you something. Old soul, that's who you are. In the room. Even the one or the two, not necessarily for the program, but to help somebody else. You're there, old soul, and you've got multiple lifetimes. And so the cave of creation becomes the Gaia record of who is here and who has been here. Now, here is the interdimensional part that is confusing to the human being. Listen. The cave is static, and that is to say, there are never any crystals added or taken away. And that means that there's a crystalline structure for every potential human being who will ever live on planet Earth. And you will say, oh, now that doesn't make sense. It sounds like predestination. It is not. The cave is predisposed in a quantum state to be complete every moment. Therefore, as things change on the planet, it changes. The crystalline structure numbers do not. I can't explain that to you except to say this is a quantum effect. The cave is always complete. It always has all of humanity in it, past, present, and future. That means that you are actually interacting with those who are not here yet. I can't explain it any greater than that. Your three-dimensional mind is not ready to go on that journey. But know this, the cave is complete, it's sacred, it's sealed, and Gaia is there. And so in summary, this cave becomes the record of souls, lifetimes, and the energy that you create. Now listen to me. Whatever you do on the planet, whatever that means to you, whatever vibration you create on the planet is imbued into these crystalline substances, and the record of your life is here on the planet with the accompanying vibration forever. Let's say you are Mary tonight. Mary, when you cross over, that's where you're going. And you've been there before. Oh, Mary, you've been there before. And you go there in joy, and you remember it, and you know where you're going home. And let us say Mary is a healer. Let us say Mary has increased the vibration of this planet by her on the earth. Let us say that the earth remembers Mary's footsteps because she knows who she is. Let us say Mary is in touch with her higher self. Let us say Mary has created a portal wherever she goes, and then she passes over. And let us say that there is a gathering that is so sorry to see her go because she was marvelous, and they cry, and there are tears, and there is sorrow. Well, here's the truth. Mary goes to the cave of creation, and everything she ever was, the portal she creates, is imbued into the crystalline structure, and the portal remains because Mary was here. And it never goes away, never goes away, it never goes away. And in she comes again as George. But here's what you got to know. Here's what you got to know. And here's the process, and here's the beauty, is that when George comes in, he picks up Mary. And both George and Mary go someplace. And that is the next step. Second of 4 parts. It is in the DNA. Your personal Akashic record, every lifetime you've been, everything you've ever done, all of the attributes are in your DNA. They're in those 3 billion parts, 90% of which are called junk. That is the Akashic record, partially. We've said that before. It's not new news. But now you have something you didn't realize. You've got George and Mary in your DNA, and only George's body is there. So what's George going to do with Mary's lifetime in his DNA? I'll tell you what. Everything that Mary learned is available to George. He doesn't have to learn it again. Listen, learned is available to George. He doesn't have to learn it again. Listen to me. You came in to this life and you sit in the chair and you're learning what you think you're learning, and maybe you think you have a steep learning curve. Maybe you just tuned in to who you are. I will tell you that in your DNA, old soul, is everything you need. If you give intent, old soul, you're going to have the wisdom of the ancients now. And every page you read in a Kryon book, you will say, I remember this, it's right. There's nothing new here. But it's nice to see it in writing. So there is a complexity here. The cave of creation is a record of who comes and goes and the energy thereof staying with the earth. The DNA contains the DNA contains the individual record of the one soul and all they have done while you're alive. What a system. Look at the first one. It's Gaia related. It is in Gaia. It is deep in the earth. It represents a crystalline structure. That's Gaia. Known by the earth, you are. Loved by the earth, you are. Those of you who deal with earth-like things, nature, animals, even the study of the rocks of the land, when you walk in certain places, you can feel it. The intelligence of Gaia, a confluence of energy that wraps around you, that says, I know you. You belong here. It is appropriate that you step upon the planet, oh human being. For what you do here will change the universe eventually. Can't you feel it? There is no cave of creation for the animals. They are here in support of humanity. Some of them are here to love you, and you know that. When you look in their eyes and they look back, they see the old soul. And yes, they can reincarnate. But they're not in the cave of creation. They don't have that which you would assign to a human being, which is a consciousness that can increase itself by free choice. The human is the only one who can do that, because you've got divinity in your DNA. Implanted there approximately 100,000 years ago by that which is from another planet, another star system, who went through this and graduated. In all appropriateness, this planet got what it got from the Pleiadians in a beautiful way, in an appropriate way, in a divine way, in a perfect way. No wars, no conspiracies, and they're here. They're still here. They're your brothers and your sisters. And a piece of them is in you. You're in a quantum state with them. I can't explain that anymore either. But some of you can feel it. Some of you can see it. It's beautiful. It's not inappropriate. Into your DNA surges all that you ever were, old soul. And we told you in many channelings how you can access this. Not just the spiritual information, but even some of the attributes that you were. And I will give you part of the process, which is biology. The essence of the energy of who you used to be is in your DNA. Therefore, it has the ability to talk to the blueprint of your stem cells. It explains spontaneous remission. It's the human being who decides they're done with the disease and picks up that which is healthy from a past life which had no disease. And what medicine does with that, they don't do anything with it. They've never seen anything like it. They give it a name and pass on. Somehow the human has rid themselves of the most virulent diseases known to man, and they come clean with no trace of it. Spontaneous remission, it just goes away. I'll tell you, that is not a miracle from above. That's a miracle from within. And that's what we're talking about. Oh, there's so much in there. This is the energy that's giving you this. That's number 2. Let me tell you number 3. There is a grid of appropriateness that is being activated like never before. It is an esoteric grid. You cannot see it. It is interdimensional, and it has a name that should give away what it does. It is called, has a name that should give away what it does. It is called the crystalline grid. Crystalline, like it is in the cave of creation, is the name given to it, so you'll understand it is a storage device, and it stores information. A grid of the earth that is esoteric, that stores energy of you. Now, this is different than the cave of creation. The cave is a record of who you are, what you've done, and the energy of what you've done goes into the earth and stays there. This grid is on the exterior. A grid that sits upon the ground of the earth, you might say. You can't see it, but it's there. Now, it contains imprints of your energy. The best example I can give you that would prove that this is so, is this. When you go to Europe and certain parts of your earth, you feel what has happened there. Layers and layers of war. Some of you have a hard time meditating there. It's difficult to clear the land, isn't it? Because of what's happened on the land. That ought to tell you about the crystalline grid. That everything that ever happened lays on the grid where it happened. So it is location specific. You come to certain parts of the planet where nothing happened, and it's clear and it's clean, and you meditate better. I want to ask you something. Take a look at where all of the channelers have come from in the last 25 to 30 years. They have come from the pristine land that never had wars. Take a look. Land that never had wars. Take a look. Because it's easier for a human being to relate to what? The essence of Gaia. Again, here it is. The connection is there. The connection with the earth. Why the earth? And I will tell you, because Gaia is part of a measuring system, a vibrational measuring system. There'll come a day when the earth is measured for its vibrational attributes that were created by what the humans did. Collectively, what you've done And what you're going to do lays upon this planet in a vibratory rate which is measurable by spirit. That's the crystalline grid. We've given you some of the attributes of the grid you didn't expect. It's in a channeling you can read and you can see. It even explains ghosts. An imprint so strong in a certain area that even though the human beings have left, the imprint of what they did replays like a tape. Go find it if you're interested. That's how profound it is. So here you are with this information. Interesting it is. 3 places you exist at the same time. The cave of creation keeps a record of who you are, comes and goes, keeps your energy even though you're gone. The DNA in the human body helps you while you live. All that you ever were is in there. All 1,000 lifetimes, if you've lived 1,000 of them, is in there, all accessible. You never have to relearn anything spiritually. It's cumulative. It stays with you. All you have to do is open that spiritual jar, and out will come the wisdom of the ancients. And listen, this ought to tell you something. All of you are your own ancestors. What does that mean to you? Do you know what the indigenous of this planet know? Do you know what they do? Look at their services of worship. They used a modern term, so you'll know what they do. What is the first thing they do? They honor the ancestors. It's with them. They know it's with them. Intuitively, they know that is first on the stack of honoring. Before they ask for help, they always go to the ancestors. Listen to their service sometime. Listen to what they do. Not only they honor the ancestors, they ask them for wisdom. The indigenous know how to mine the Akash. They always have. Because they realize the circle of life. They know that they are their own ancestors. They know it's inside of them. So why shouldn't they pull upon that which is wise? And what do you know about the indigenous of this area? And how did they feel about the earth? They knew Gaia, didn't they? For they saw it as a partner in their soul life. Oh, dear one, if you study the ancients, you're going to find everything I've given you today. They knew. Intuitively, they knew. Lastly, we've spoken this only 2 times before. Years and years ago, we gave you some information we now then complete. Hard for you to understand why this should be. Part of the system that I've just described to you, part of the cave of creation, part of the DNA in a human being, and part of the crystalline grid. The information of those 3 combined are stored in a living mammal on this planet. It has to be this way. It is the final layer. It connects you not only with Gaia, but it connects you with the life on earth in the most profound way. It is stored in the whales. Let's talk about whales. You love them, don't you? Oh, by the way, ask a biologist. A dolphin is a whale. It's just smaller. You love the whales, don't you? Do you realize it is the only mammal on the planet that is protected by almost all of the countries on Earth, even those without an ocean? What a coincidence. There is an intuitive level of all humanity, no matter what their system of government, no matter where they are, that knows that you can't eliminate them or you'll be in trouble. They hold the records. It is the cycle. The whales are in Gaia. They're under the water. They're mammals like you. They contain the information. It is the cycle. It is complete. The very water of the earth now has everything you've done, who you are, who you might be. Do you see the profundity of the system? And what is it about? It's about you. All of it. All of it. Why would the earth be so designed intelligently to keep track of you, to honor you, to know who you are and the name you had? Why would that be unless you were important, unless you were part of the master plan, unless you had something to do with the universe's future? Think about it. That's the system. I won't be the only one to channel this information to you, to give you proof that the system is the system. And there are others who've never heard these words that'll tell you the same thing. If you get a chance, you might even ask Gaia, and she'll tell you the same thing. Gaia exists for the sacred human beings that are on this planet and lesson. I give you this in love today. You leave this place differently. I want you to think about the system in place. Everywhere you walk, you're known. How many of you have ever walked into a forest alone and felt the company of the trees? For that's real. I speak of animals. They're here to service humanity and how they do it so completely. I've spoken of how some of them are here to be eaten. They have to be. You can't grow things fast enough. That's a service. And for those of you who are vegan, you would say, well, I never eat them. That is a choice for your health. It's appropriate and accurate. It doesn't hold true for everyone. And many will eat them. Never understanding. The animal knew it when they came in. It's not about sacrifice, it's about appropriateness. How do you treat them? How do you treat them before they become your food? Oh, that's a question, isn't it? Instead, relax, be joyful in all things, and fall in love with yourself. I am Kryon, lover of humanity, for a good reason. And so it is.